Welcome into the rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400, around the world on the iHeartRadio app. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rob Sanders, like Big Voice Guy said there. I wish I had pipes like that, but I don't. Sometimes I sound like I'm a cat in a blender. If you can envision a cat in a blender, just listen to the show. It's kind of how my voice sounds sometimes. But today we're going to look at Mizzou in South Carolina. A special guest that I recorded an interview with earlier today, my good friend Brendan Anthony from the Mizzoucast. He joins us, and we're going to talk a little bit about with him in just a moment. Also today, I've got comments from Coach Shane Beamer as he's named his starting quarterback, and Dabo Swinney lost another player to the transfer portal. We'll play you the comments from Dabo Swinney as he announced that earlier today. But before we get into that interview I did earlier with the Mizzoucast, Brendan Anthony and his brother put together this podcast that covers Mizzou sports. If you are, it's actually just a hilarious show. So if you get an opportunity to go and check that out. But we preview the Mizzou matchup with South Carolina. Here's the interview I did earlier with Brendan from the Mizzoucast. All right, let's welcome in from the Mizzoucast, Mr. Brendan Anthony. Brendan, what's going on, man? How are you today?
We're doing all right, licking our wounds from our trip to Athens last weekend.
I tell you what, man, Georgia does that to everybody. Don't lick your wounds too much because everybody kind of ends up having to do that. I think Georgia's a cut above everybody else. But you and your brother do the Mizzoucast, which, of course, is the best Mizzou podcast out there. And, of course, you guys are working covering the football season. And I got to get some thoughts from you about the big matchup between Mizzou and South Carolina. First of all, is there any update on the status of your starting quarterback, Connor Bazelak?
There's not been as of yet. Today, Coach Eli Drinkwitz is going to give a press conference. I do not expect him to tip his hand on whether Connor Bazelak will play. That being said, I expect that you will see him on Saturday. His injury that kept him out of the Georgia game was listed as a soft tissue injury, and there was no other explanation of what that meant other than he'd been playing poorly, and it seemed like a good excuse to get in our second and third string backups to see what they could do against this Georgia team. I expect South Carolina looks like, I don't know if we can win this game, but it certainly looks more winnable than going up against number one Georgia. So I think he's going to give it everything he has. And Connor Bazelak still looks like the best option Mizzou has for this season.
I'm going to blame your brother for this because he's not here. And I know that you'll probably agree with me on this, but I was thinking that Bazelak was probably going to be maybe the second or third best quarterback in the SEC this year. He had a very, very promising year last year, but why do you think he's regressed this year?
Yeah, it's the $1 million question here in Columbia. I think we were trying to convince as many people of that as possible before the season started, and now we look like fools. But I really do think that Connor Bazelak has been taking a lot of hits. Our offensive line has been one of the weaker units on this very weak team. Nothing is worse than defense right now, but Connor Bazelak's been beat up a lot. He's a pure pocket passer, which is not the easiest thing to say on the radio, but he doesn't run the ball a lot, and that's gotten to be less and less frequent since he's been beat up. I think he's just covered in bruises, and without any sort of threat as far as taking off with the run, it makes defending him much, much easier. The thing that has been really concerning is his lack of accuracy and the interceptions. I think he's tied for like first or second in interceptions in the conference. And we just didn't see any of that last year. His stock and trade was that he was poised and nothing ruffled his feathers. But we've been scratching our heads about this all season long, and every week he gets worse and worse to the point where he obviously didn't play on Saturday. And I don't doubt that there is an injury, but it was time to sit him for a little bit. I think if for nothing else, just to get this team a different look. Missouri's had a very rough season. We're sitting at 4-5, but we haven't had one impressive win of those four. And games that we looked at as possibly winnable haven't even been close this year. And so we still have a lot of hopes for Eli Drinkwitz's recruiting ability because he is recruiting at a level that Mizzou fans have never seen. But those guys aren't on campus yet, so we're having to endure the remaining 3 games of this season. And I imagine South Carolina fans listening to this are licking their chops, and they probably should be.
Well, but has the fan base kind of checked out on the season? You said you just said, hey, we're kind of just weeding through the last 3 games. Could this win kind of maybe bring the fan base back a little bit if it happens this weekend?
Oh, certainly. I think that the big thing for Mizzou fans has happened off the field this year with the recruitment of five-star wide receiver out of East St. Louis, Luther Burden. He's the biggest name recruit Missouri has had since probably Dorial Green Beckham, the wide receiver, or Terry Beckner Jr., who was a defensive lineman. And those guys, Beckner Jr. had a bunch of knee injuries that slowed him down, and Dorial Green Beckham was just an absolute mess of a human being, and he ended up getting kicked off Mizzou squad, going to Oklahoma, and then flaming out in the NFL. So we haven't had good luck in the few times we've gotten these five-star guys. But Luther Burden decided to stay home. He eschewed Georgia and Alabama to stay with Missouri. And Eli Drinkwitz does a great job of selling this program. And so people have stayed with the team because of the hope for next year. But you also look at the back end of these last three games. South Carolina, up until what you all did to Florida, that made us a lot more nervous. But South Carolina is a team that, beat Vanderbilt by a point, so we look at that and think, well, maybe we can steal one there. Then you see what kind of dumpster fire Dan Mullen's putting together at Florida. You think, who knows when you could sneak up. Missouri has done that. They have snuck up on Florida before and trounced them, as South Carolina did last weekend. And then Arkansas, I think we've kind of looked at that one as an unwinnable game, even though Missouri has a current 5-game winning streak against the Hogs. That looks to end probably this year. But the Georgias, the Alabamas, those types of teams, they're in our rearview mirror. And so we are hoping that, if you get a win, 5 wins isn't a great season, but it's not embarrassing. If you get 2 wins, all of a sudden you're bowl eligible, and that seems unlikely for us, but it is possible given the state of these other teams we're playing.
Well, let's talk about folks that are actually on the team this year. I mean, how special is Tyler Beatty to this team?
Tyler Beatty was the backup receiver for Larry Roundtree III for the last couple of years, and he was always a fast sort of scat back. And Larry Roundtree was the workhorse and got most of the snaps. And the questions going into this season is Tyler Beatty big enough or strong enough or capable of carrying the increased workload? And that question has been answered and then some, because his backup running back, a guy named Elijah Young, has not panned out he's not on the field very much. In fact, former walk-on Michael Cox has turned into Beatty's backup, and he's a much better back than people expected. But Tyler Beatty is the Mizzou offense, and Mizzou's offense only works when we can get a little bit of a passing game going to open it up for Tyler Beatty. And he's so dangerous because he's an incredible receiver. He almost never drops the ball. So out of these screen passes, he's very dangerous. And if he gets any space, he's super quick. And every team except Georgia has been burned by Tyler Beatty. And so I imagine South Carolina itself is got all eyes on Tyler Beatty because he is this Mizzou team. He's made himself draft eligible player in a way that I really didn't think I love the kid. He's become one of my top 3 running backs in Mizzou history in my lifetime because he's just, his highlight reel is unbelievable, and we need him. If Tyler Beatty ain't working, this team ain't working. And sadly, the next player that we count on is our kicker. Harrison Mevis is a guy they call the thicker kicker because he's got a big old rump, but all he does is use that thing to muscle field goals and extra points. I think he missed his first field goal of the season against Georgia. He was I think combined extra points and field goals, it was 66 in a row. For college kickers, ask Mississippi State. You can't discount how important that is, even though we're talking about a kicker here. So in answer to your question, Tyler Beatty is everything to this program. And Tyler Beatty's parents are awesome. They came out to our tailgate whenever we threw a big tailgate in Tennessee. Tyler Beatty's parents are the coolest, and the whole family's great, and I can't speak highly enough about this kid.
Well, it's sad that on the defensive side of the ball, things just aren't exactly rosy there for the Tigers. Do you think that Steve Wilkes is the Mizzou version of Todd Grantham?
Yeah, I think it's probably an apt comparison.
I don't mean to pry, but when I see that, it's like, oh, they both essentially put out kind of the same things here.
Yeah, no, Steve Wilkes will. I have a lot of. Well, I don't have money riding, but I would put money on Steve Wilkes not being the defensive coordinator of this team next season. It has been nothing short of a dumpster fire. We're the worst run defense in all of college football. I think there's 130 teams, and we have been ranked 130th on the run. And I don't know why any team passes against us. If Beamer and company are listening to this, don't even throw the ball. Just run it every time. You will win the game because we cannot stop the run. the weird thing is they looked a lot better against Georgia. Obviously, Georgia trounced Missouri, but it was kind of a war of attrition. They came on strong, and frankly, if the defensive team that played against Georgia shows up to South Carolina, they might actually get a few stops. And like I said, if Tyler Beatty's working it on the offense, then we do have a chance of being competitive in this game in the same way that we were competitive against Kentucky earlier in the year. I know South Carolina was as well, but yeah, the defense is horrid, and they fired the defensive line coach midway through the season. Wilkes is next before people start looking at Elijah Drinkwitz. And this is his second defensive coordinator in 2 years. And so whenever he has to can this guy and give money away to fill out his contract, our new athletic director might say, hey, why are you so bad at picking these coordinators? What's the matter here? And she'd be right to do so, because Eli, I think, is a great offensive mind, but he's got to figure things out on defense. It ain't going to work in the SEC.
All right, for Mizzou to win this weekend, what do you think has to happen?
Well, like I said, stops on defense are going to be key. And if they can get turnovers, which we rarely do, but if there's a fumble or an interception that can go Missouri's way, that'll be a crucial thing. It'll be interesting to see if Connor Bazelak is back in this game, because if he's not, the quarterbacks you're going to be looking at are Brady Cook, who's more of a passing quarterback, and then Tyler Macon, who is a run-first kind of guy. And they do bring a dynamic that Connor Bazelak doesn't bring, but they're far less reliable. Neither one of them are the pure passers that Connor Bazelak is. And but if Bazelak is back, and if a week off has helped him recover a little bit and he's confident, then this offense should score points. It's not the problem for this team. It's the question of, can the defense get stops and can they produce turnovers? If the answer is yes, then I think Missouri can win this game. But when we don't have a defense, you can't count on anything, and we have not had a defense this year. So while it is possible, I'm certainly not counting on it. I have no confidence.
All right, final question for Brendan Anthony, of course, from the Mizzoucast. You can find their podcast however you get your favorite podcast. Just search for Mizzoucast and follow them on Twitter at Mizzoucast. College hoops starts tonight. Do you have any high hopes for Conzo Martin's team?
We've been hard on Conzo Martin. He's entering his 5th season here at Mizzou. He's produced 2 trips to the NCAA tournament and 0 NCAA tournament wins. So we keep saying that, I'm going to be hard on the guy until he has more tournament wins than I do as head coach. And that, to this point, that hasn't happened. We have had an entire roster turnover with this team this year. So nobody really knows what to expect out of this basketball team. It is a completely new look. It's everybody on this team is a fresh face. And I think the recruiting was solid, but I mean, I can't tell you who the star is going to be. I can't tell you what our strong points are, what our weak points are. And frankly, because of the closed way that the coaches now handle both football and basketball, nobody in the media seems to know either. And, like I said, tonight's basketball's starting up, and we're going to get our first look and find out, if this team's going to be any good. But it's been a drought for Missouri on the basketball front as well.
Brendan Anthony joining us from the Mizzoucast. Hey, man, I appreciate you hanging out with us, and say hello to your brother.
Will do. Thanks for having me on, Rob.
There you go. Brendan Anthony from the Mizzoucast joining me earlier this afternoon, bringing up some good points there about the South Carolina-Mizzou matchup. That's a game that odds makers think is about a 3-point spread either way. You can get it at opened up at 3 points, where South Carolina was an underdog. Then they were a 1-point favorite on the road. It's amazing how that matchup with Florida can change a lot of things. One thing has been consistent, though, is that Mizzou has been terrible on the defensive side of the ball. They are not very good. They just really, really aren't. So with that, Mike online says they don't belong in the SEC. Mike needs to remember that Mizzou has twice as many SEC East titles as South Carolina does. 2 more than Kentucky does, 2 more than Vanderbilt does. He just seems to forget that kind of thing. So bless your heart over there, Mike. Bless your sweet little heart. Anyway, I've got some comments from Coach Shane Beamer. Ladies and gentlemen, he talked a little bit about Mizzou. Here are some of his thoughts as the Gamecock head coach had his press conference today. About 90 seconds worth of his thoughts, and he's going to tell us who his starting quarterback is.
In Missouri this week, they've certainly been beat up and had some injuries as the year has gone on, like we have as well. Defensively, they're playing better. I know the narrative was early in the season they couldn't stop the run and whatnot. And when you turn on the tape, you don't see that. All you have to do is watch the first half of the Georgia game, and Georgia couldn't run the football against them on Saturday. And the reason Georgia was winning like they were at halftime was because they blocked a punt for a touchdown, and because the Georgia quarterbacks and receivers and tight ends made some phenomenal one-on-one plays. So they are loading the box. They're doing a great job of stopping the run. That was very evident in the first half of the Georgia game. And, they're playing a little bit more man coverage and making your receivers and tight ends and running backs make plays. So that'll be a big challenge for our guys this week, going up against their defense. They got obviously an all SEC performer at defensive end and Jeff Coat, and it's an impressive group as you watch them. They're really good on special teams.
I guess I'll just start it off with the quarterbacks. I think we saw Jason's going to be the number one guy on the depth chart. Is that the case that he's going to be the starter on Saturday?
Yes, Jason will start at quarterback. He obviously played well the other night and had some momentum because of it offensively, and need to keep that going. Zeb's healthier and is available. Zeb practiced today, did more today in practice than he did at any point last week, so he's good to go. Jason's the starter, and we've got a capable group of guys back there that we can put in there and play quarterback, whether it be him or Colton or Jason, Colton, Zeb, to carry on, whoever it may be. Omega Blake, who knows?
Coach Shane Beamer today at his press conference as, hey, Jason Brown's going to be your quarterback. There'd have been a full-on riot if he's like, yeah, we're going to run with Nolan this week. People would have been losing their gizzards after Brown led them to that win. Anyway, yeah, it's silly when you think about it, but give Jason Brown a chance to go out there. And you know what? As bad as that Mizzou defense is, and you heard Brennan talking about it earlier, one of the worst defenses in the country. If the Gamecocks are going to have an all-out explosion game on offense, even bigger than what they did against Florida, this is the matchup to do it because Mizzou is really, really bad. And I think there's a section of that Mizzou team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that they're out there, but they pretty much quit. That's kind of the vibe that I get from them there. But, and obviously you have to go out there and play the games, but just from what I've seen, they did play a little bit better against Georgia, but nobody's going to look good against Georgia regardless because Georgia's a cut above everybody else. But they looked a little bit better. The offense, though, is anemic as well. It looks like on paper that South Carolina can go up there and actually get an SEC road win. So we'll see how that shakes out there for the Gamecocks. All right, quick break when we come back. Dabo Swinney had a press conference today. One big piece of news comes out of it about a player that is entering the transfer portal. We'll play you some comments from the Clemson head coach shortly and talk about that transfer here on The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. That's funny, Billy. I'm trying to analyze where I'm going to go with the Tennessee pick this week because, Tennessee plays a little bit more of a different offense than what Georgia's used to being seeing this year. So I don't know, maybe the tempo can catch them, and I'm not saying that Tennessee wins, but maybe they keep it a little bit closer than the 22. What do you guys think about that? Anybody taking Tennessee at all? Hendon Hooker looks really good when he has the opportunity. Well, to be honest, on the Brownell thing, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to get someone to go coach Clemson basketball. I mean, it really is. It's not like Clemson basketball is where you go to coach. So I think the line's at 22, Alan. Look, I think Georgia's going to win. I'm just wondering how the spread's going to go for that. Rick Barnes should still be at Clemson. Very good, Fireball. They didn't want to pay him. The comrade is a dummy. There's another dumb quote from the comrade. Poor fella. History, Jimmy. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. A couple of notes from the Clemson press conference today with Coach Dabo Swinney. Here's the big thing with that. The one big piece of news, and we'll go ahead and play this, is that reserve offensive guard Paul Chio has left the program and entered the transfer portal. He is the fourth player for Clemson to leave in the middle of the season. Here are the comments on that from Coach Dabo Swinney.
Injury-wise, the only guy that's definitely out is Ngata. We'll have a couple other days that are probably guys that'll be probably day-to-day, but he's the only one that's out. And then Paul Tio has left the team. He's entered into the portal. So appreciate his contributions and wish him well with what he does next. And with that, take your questions.
I know you said nothing surprises you anymore. Did that catch you off guard at all? Just with the
Nothing
guys?
catches me off guard in 2021. Nothing surprises me. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely zero. It's just the world we're in.
Is it playing time? Or?
I guess, that's kind of, just wants a different opportunity. And that's what we have in college football. You want a different opportunity. You got to go in the portal. You can go somewhere in January. And, so just, it is what it is. You keep moving.
Coach Dabo Swinney at his press conference today. And what I take away from that is, it's like Swinney is standing under a magnifying glass in a hot South Carolina summer out on the beach. And the sand is hot on his feet and he doesn't want to be there. And that magnifying glass is beaming down on his neck and burning his neck. That's pretty much how he feels about the transfer portal. The idea basically is that Chio is a young man who actually had a start against NC State this season. This is a guy that's played. He's averaged, I think it's 101 snaps this season with one start at NC State. And with that, one of your best backup offensive linemen leaving the program, then you got to put freshmen in there, which is what he said he's going to do. So with that, I think that really bugged Dabo Swinney. Now, here's the other thing about the press conference. Generally, Dabo Swinney press conferences are like 48 minutes, 49 minutes, whatever. Today's press conference checked in at about 20 minutes, 21:05. And there weren't a lot of people that were actually covering it because Connecticut is horrible. Horrible. Now, they have had plenty of time to prepare for the game. They haven't played since October 22nd. 2-week bye came about as a result of them playing their first game on August the 28th. Their lone win against Yale, 21-15, on October 16th. The Huskies rank 126th nationally in total offense and 109th in total defense. So it is a 38-point line for Clemson, and how long the starters are going to play will be the determining factor for this weekend. It's not, Connecticut is literally just trying to play out the year. Remember, their coach said at the beginning of the season, yeah, I'm going to retire at the end of the season. Randy Etzel. I'm going to retire at the end of the season, then came back the next day. No, I'm going to quit now. So the guy that put together this team is out, and they're just trying to coast through the rest of the season. It's pretty much what it boils down to. All right, we'll take your calls at 803-978-1832, 803-978-1832. South Carolina opened up as a 3-point dog at Mizzou. If you missed the interview with Brendan Anthony from the Mizzou, you want to learn more about Mizzou and what they've got and what could cause the Gamecocks problems, go back and check out the podcast. It'll be up at about 5:00 this afternoon. Also, the podcast is there for you. Also, the plenty of stuff up on the blog page at foxsportsradio1400.com. We had news of the transfer up this morning as soon as we found out about it. You can go and check that out, foxsportsradio1400.com. All right, we'll take your calls, 803-978-1832. Let's go out to the phones. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, how's it going?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. Hey, I want to talk about Alabama.
Sure.
I'm going to tell you right now, they got a loss coming. The way they played LSU, they got a loss coming. And Texas A&M, to me, looks like a team that wants to win the SEC West.
Well, all they need is one more Alabama loss, and they've got it. They'll have that. They'll have the tiebreaker over Alabama, and one more Alabama loss, and that will knock Alabama out of the trip to Atlanta and send Texas A&M.
Yeah, I know everyone doesn't doubt Nick, and it's Alabama, and I get that. I'm telling you right now, I'm doubting Alabama, and I'm doubting Nick Saban. His team looked absolutely horrible against LSU with 2 weeks to get ready. And just like I told Bama fans in 2017, right before they took it on a nose against Auburn, I said, you guys have a loss heading your way. And Alabama fans, you got another loss heading your way. Just how I feel.
Hey, man, I appreciate it. And that's a very valid point. Hey, thanks for calling the program.
Absolutely.
Yeah, when you look at Alabama and what happened with them with LSU, they got a coach at LSU who is leaving. You know that he's leaving. Everything should be going against LSU. They've got, folks that I think they've had folks that have transferred out. There's been so many things that have happened with that LSU program, in addition to the fact they're going to try to find a new coach. But you would think Alabama would just smack the stupid off of them. Pretty much is the way that it would go. They were held to 6 yards rushing. I honestly don't know how that works out. So we'll have to see how that looks for Alabama and then go from there. Let's see here. Biscuit says if Auburn beats Bama and there's a 3-way tie, Auburn goes. No, not necessarily, because the fact that Texas A&M has a win over Auburn. So Texas A&M beat Auburn, Texas A&M beat Alabama. They've got the head-to-head, so that would send them to the championship game. If Texas A&M wins out and Auburn beats Alabama, that gives Alabama 2 losses as well. So Texas A&M would go if there was a 3-way tie with both with 2 losses. So look, I don't think you should ever bet against Alabama, but the reality is that that game could be just a shooting star. We'll see it once and we won't see it again. Or it could be a sign of maybe there's something to come. Apparently, there were folks that aren't happy with the offensive line coach. And, with Alabama, they've got 5-star on top of 5-star talent. And there shouldn't be an issue of a talent discrepancy. That they haven't had any issues with COVID. It's just they're not as dominant as they were last year. I think that's something that people see and they think, this isn't, Mac Jones and those guys throwing the ball around. They had to pretty much rebuild that offense. Yeah, they've got some guys that are still there, but when you lose the Heisman Trophy winner, I mean, 2 Heisman finalists off the offensive side of the ball, things are going to change a little bit. Things are definitely going to change. All right, so 803-978-1832. If you agree with the caller or you think that maybe it was just a shooting star, as we'll call it, or do you think Alabama's in trouble? We'll take calls on that. South Carolina's chances with Mizzou and getting to be bowl eligible. Yeah, we could talk about that. Clemson with the transfer portal. Man, this is something everyone is going to have to deal with. I think it's going to get to a point where there's going to be one coach that does nothing but the transfer portal. That's it. Because there's so much talent that's in the mix that's going to be out there. Look with Clemson, you think that certain teams wouldn't like to have an offensive lineman that has 101 snaps this season at a Power 5 level? Just saying, there's a lot of folks that would love to have that talent there. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll have more for you here on The Rundown. This is Fox Sports Radio 1400. Blake, that's funny. Oh, by the way, I read something on the 247 sports site this morning. We'll tell you what I read about that, about the LSU coaching job. So that's true, Justin. There's still a lot of football to be played. I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that Auburn could scratch something together and beat Alabama. But Texas A&M has to play LSU. I can't remember who else is left on the Texas A&M schedule. So let me think. Let me look here. The blue stick. Okay. Yeah, there's that too. Welcome back to the Rundown on Fox Sports Radio 1400 around the world on the iHeartRadio app. My name is Rob Sanders. Thanks for joining us today. I'm on Twitter at Rob Sounds Good. Appreciate the live folks watching today. You can follow the show as well on the Fox Sports Radio Facebook page. Go and check that out and comment away. All right, so really quick here. We were talking about LSU there for a moment. There is a set of folks that I read something on the 247 sports site this morning that said that Jimbo Fisher is the guy that they want. Now, I don't know how that's going to work out. Jimbo Fisher is getting $9 million a year to coach at Texas A&M. Now, he is kind of a mercenary. I mean, when I say that, I mean, do you think that he wants to? Do you think he cares where he coaches as long as he gets paid? I don't think that he's in the camp of having loyalty anywhere else. I mean, he may be loyal to Texas A&M. You don't know, but apparently that is the guy, according to 247 Sports, that is in the mix to get the job is Jimbo Fisher. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. They're going to have to come off a lot of money at LSU to get him. But in reality, I mean, Texas A&M is a program that has a lot of money anyway. One of the biggest athletic departments in sports as far as the financial side of it. So, we'll see. We'll see how that works out. I don't think that he's going to end up going there, but it's going to be interesting because if they come to him with an offer of, look, we'll give you $10 million a year, that's $1 million more. Now, but I also have it in my head too, and maybe I'm just too hard on coaches, but Texas A&M recruits in the top 10 pretty much every year. He's done a good job with that. And hey, they beat Alabama this year, but you know what? They lost to Mississippi State and Arkansas. So you can have this great season at the end of the year where the rest of their schedule, it works out that they've got Ole Miss this weekend, one of a top 15 matchup. And then they play Prairie View A&M, which I didn't even think they still played football there. They should be favored in both of those games. I think they're like a 1-point favorite against Ole Miss going on the road. That'll be a tough win. But if he gets that win, you're playing an LSU team that it'll be their final game of the season, most likely. And in all actuality, he's come up short. No championships down there. Let's go back out to the phones. And welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, Rob, how's it going? This is Keith Shelley from the comment section.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you doing? I don't know if Texas A&M will be any good if Jimbo leaves. He's got all these 5 stars that are supposed to come in. Imagine what happens if he leaves to go to LSU. I mean, these kids, they build up all this camaraderie with these head coaches and everything. And if he just leaves, I mean, that kind of breaks their heart, and they're going to try to find someplace else to get that love back to them,
Yeah, man, and I appreciate it. Your phone's kind of messing up on me there, so I'm going to drop you off there because it sounds a little like you're running through the weeds there. But yeah, look, at Texas A&M, they'll be able to have the money to get another coach. Here's the thing, though, a name that's surfaced in the coaching carousel with the TCU job is Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I thought he was going to be the guy that took an HBCU and recruited at a level where they could compete with Power 5 teams. It's kind of what he went into his job with. But apparently he is in the mix at TCU. Now, let's just have the disaster scenario here for Texas A&M that Jimbo Fisher leaves and goes to LSU. All right, that's great. Do you think they put Deion Sanders in the mix? Sanders has proven that he can recruit. He's definitely got that going for him. But I don't know if Coach Prime has the man. I mean, you're putting him in basically a Ferrari there and telling him to go after it. Because I think Texas A&M is close. They did beat Alabama this year. If they win against Ole Miss, there's still going to be a section of the fans that are going to be like, man, how did we lose? How did we lose to Mississippi State and Arkansas? No disrespect to those two teams who at the beginning of the season were playing some really good football. But in the grand scheme of things, I think it's safe to say on paper, Texas A&M is a better team. They just had to deal with issues and figure out who they were going to run out there at quarterback. But the coaching carousel is going to be interesting. I also think that Dan Mullen's going to go somewhere else. I don't know if he wants to be in college anymore. If he wants to be in college, somebody else is going to give him a look. I don't know who, but he'll have an opportunity to coach somewhere else. I believe that, but I think he wants to go to the NFL. I really do. So we'll have to follow that and the coaching carousel is always interesting. You know, we were Mizzou's probably going to be looking for a defensive coordinator. We were talking with Brennan about that earlier. As Steve Wilkes, Steve, got my notes messed up. The coach that's up there, the coach in the NFL, he is probably going to be moving on. SEC Dog says Texas A&M defense is good. The offense is awful. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. They've gotten a little bit better under Calzada. So, yeah, there's definitely that too. All right, so we could take some calls on the coaching carousel stuff. We'll take a quick break in a moment. Actually, we'll go to the phones. Welcome into the rundown. Good afternoon.
Hey, you know, you need to cut this stuff out, putting that rat poison over the radio about Dan Marlin going to go somewhere else.
Well,
Dan Marlin is not leaving
sir, your own team doesn't want him. I mean, seriously. If you've
do
been
you
on
know
the
who
Florida
told you
message
that?
board sites, they don't want him there anymore either. I could show
Oh,
you
yeah,
hundreds
really?
of tweets where people are like, get this guy out of here.
I don't care what they say. Dan Marlin ain't going nowhere. That's just rat poison. Stop believing that rat poison.
All right. Well, I tell you what, man, I'll bet you a fine beverage of your choice, he's going somewhere.
Okay.
All right. When he does, I know you're an honorable gentleman and you will pay up.
That's right.
All right. We'll work that out. But I think he's leaving. I don't think he wants to be there anymore. Really don't.
Yeah, he ain't going nowhere.
Well, we'll see. He may not have a
All right.
choice. He may stay down there. He just won't be the coach of the team.
Oh, he'll be there.
All right, Hollywood, appreciate it. It's not rat poison. I think that may happen. We shall see. We shall definitely see. All right, I'm going to give you my projected top 10 for tonight as the CFP rankings are coming out. In between two college basketball games tonight, by the way, South Carolina opens up with USC Upstate. Clemson opens up with Presbyterian. Number 1 ranked Lady Gamecocks. I say Lady Gamecocks. Coach Staley doesn't like that. Number 1 ranked South Carolina women's basketball team is on the road at NC State, a team that is ranked 5th in the country that came into Columbia last year and beat the Gamecocks. Now South Carolina's going on the road up there. Tip-off for that game is at 5 o'clock. Should be an interesting early matchup for women's hoops. Our quick break. When we come back, we will talk about the projected top 10 for the CFP. All that and more for you in a moment. This is The Rundown. You're listening to Fox Sports Radio 1400. That's not a bad thought there, Fireball. You know, Muschamp, if Muschamp has just if he's just a defensive coordinator, he might be all right. Only be red. That's the comment of the day. Only. Yeah, we'll put that back out on the air in a moment. Lanning, I don't know if Lanning may take a job somewhere else. Who knows? Does he want to be a head coach? We'll find out. All right, who you got at number 2 tonight? You think Alabama moves down, or they're going to be they're going to stay put? Yeah, it's not like Alabama lacks talent. You're right about that, Justin. I did see that video, Keith, and shout out to them for putting that together. That's some good stuff. That's the kind of thing that recruits see that and they're like, wow, they like that. So yeah. And Josh Van is making his he might be moving up some draft boards. Final segment of the rundown here on Fox Sports Radio 1400, 803-978-1832. A note from the chat room for our buddy Hollywood that called up earlier. Only good teams can use the term rat poison. That's very good. If you're a good team, you can use the term rat poison. If you're a 4-5 dumpster fire, you don't get to use that term, sir. We got to find a different term for you there, Hollywood. It's not rat poison. All right, let's look at how I think the top 10 is going to happen tonight with the CFP. As we roll along, I've got Oklahoma State at number 10. I think that they do have the one loss on the season, but I think they'll finish out at number 10 there. At number 9, man, it's so tough when you really stop and think about it, but I'm going to go with Notre Dame at number 9. So they keep winning, blew out Navy last week. They should have an easy path to an 11-1 record. So I think Notre Dame will come in there at number 9. Oklahoma, I think, is going to be at number 8. I don't think they're going to move them completely up right now. Their only wins against FBS opponents are Kansas State and Texas Tech. So yeah, that's not what you want. Their strength of schedule is 83rd in the country. That's not very good. So that's why Oklahoma's down there. I like Michigan at number 7. Michigan looked pretty good last week in their win over Indiana. That Michigan State loss is hanging on their neck, though, after Michigan State dropped their game, which I think Michigan State will be number 6. So they lost to Purdue. Their strength of schedule is 43rd, better than Ohio State ahead of them, but they have a higher ranked win over Michigan. That's better than anything that Cincinnati can put out there. So I like Michigan at number 6. At number 5 on the list here, I think they're going to put Cincinnati there at 5. And, the more and more I think about it, maybe they could drop them down, but I just, for the sake of the college football playoff, I don't like I just don't like Cincinnati in it. I think they're a great G5 team. Absolutely great G5 team. But to be number 5 in the country is kind of silly. Aaron says he's calling it now. Michigan beats Ohio State. To Neil with a great question online. How long does it take for a Kitkat to get stale? I don't know. That's a very good question. And then Billy, of course, says most people check their dates on the food. There's a, I think they call it a Julian date on those. You can check that out. The things they talk about in the chat room. Number 4 on the list, I think is going to be Ohio State. They are 8-1, and I think that they don't really have a signature win, but 2 of its 3 best wins have come in the last couple of weeks with Penn State and Nebraska. So yeah, give me Ohio State at number 4. Number 3 on the list is Oregon. They have a top 5 win over Ohio State in the Horseshoe. Yes, I know they lost to Stanford, but I think that the committee also looks at them from a perspective of they do have wins over Fresno State and UCLA. So there's that. I think that they'll stay at, they'll be number 3. Number 2, I think, is going to be Alabama. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if they shot something across the bow and said, you know what, Alabama, we're going to move you to number 3 and move Oregon up to number 2. That'll just get people talking. Okay. So Oregon could be 2. Alabama could be 2 if they wanted to throw that out there, because let's be honest, Alabama didn't really look good. There was a good section of folks especially in my social media feed, that were on the kick of, well, Alabama shouldn't be there. Well, in reality, who would you put ahead of Alabama? Seriously, yes. My number one pick is, of course, the Georgia Bulldogs, but who would you put at number 2 over Alabama? You can make an argument for Oregon, and I would halfway buy that. I could get into that. But after that, where are we going to go with? Michigan State? Huh. Justin says it doesn't look good, but maybe Bama will learn from it. If we're going for the 4 best teams, do you not think that as of right now, Alabama is one of the 4 best teams? Just from your perspective. I'm just saying. It's not really that far-fetched when you really stop and think about it. And I goof about SEC lower back tattoos and things like that, but if you want what's best for college football and the playoff, and we only have 4 spots, you take the 4 spots right now should be the 4 that I've got there. I think Georgia is unquestionably number 1. And then 2, 3, and 4, in theory, doesn't really matter because you're all in the playoff. But Ohio State should be there. Oregon should be there, and so should Alabama. Those other teams are hoping that they get an opportunity to unseat one of them. Now, at the end of the season, we're going to have Ohio State playing Michigan. If Michigan beats Ohio State, they have a very good argument. If that's they only have 1 loss on the season, they win the Big Ten championship and they beat Ohio State, they have a very good argument that they should be in the top 4. And, we'll have to figure out where to go from there. But Michigan, of course, has that 1 loss on the year to Michigan State, which looks a lot worse now after Michigan State went and lost to Purdue. But if you have that 1 loss and you beat Ohio State, it can remedy a lot. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. Billy says the ACC champ is not going in. He's probably right. The ACC is not having a very good football season. They really aren't. I think that there may be talk amongst the ACC office of, man, it'd be great if Clemson could figure out a way to get to the ACC championship, because if they don't, if you have a Pitt Wake Forest ACC championship game, you're going to draw about 12 people. Seriously. They'll draw more folks to the Duke's Mayonnaise Bowl than they'll draw to the conference championship game for the ACC if Clemson is not in it. They were hoping for a Clemson-North Carolina matchup where half that stadium would be orange and half of it would be Tar Heel blue, and you'd have the North Carolina quarterback Sam Howell going up against DJ Uiagalelei, who everybody thought was going to be the guy that's going to take over for Trevor Lawrence. And that was all those thoughts up in July when we were at ACC kickoff. Now you're looking at it, well, it could be literally Pittsburgh and Wake Forest. Yeah, that's not really what I think the ACC wants. Now, they won't tell you that. They won't tell you that at all. But we'll see. We'll see how that works. Brandon says a 3-loss Clemson team that's an ACC champ might make a New Year's 6 game. Look, if you're making an argument for Clemson, they have 3 losses on the season. All are to top 25 teams. 1 to the number 1 team in the country by a touchdown. Then, of course, they lost by 7 at Pittsburgh. And then, of course, the other loss to NC State that they lost in overtime. So it's not a season of, hey, it was almost there, but, that's not how it works. You got to follow through. And this Clemson team this year didn't follow through. Billy says if UGA loses to Bama in a close game, he thinks both teams would get in. Yeah, we'll have to see how that works. Do you put Oregon or Ohio State out? One of them's got to go, right? In theory. It's good stuff, man. We'll see how that works out over the season, the rest of the season. We've got the final month here. Appreciate you guys as always. Thanks to Brennan Anthony from the Mizzodcast. You guys are awesome over in the chat room. More of the rundown tomorrow here on Fox Sports Radio 1400. Hey, I appreciate you guys, man. You guys are awesome. Taking some time out of your day. It means a lot to me that you guys come and hang out. Yeah, there you go. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you so much.